Hello and welcome to Misplaced Musings. Yeah, that's right.
Musings.
Yes, I am one of your hosts, Brian Cowan, and I am joined by
Shannon Duffy, the other host.
the amazing Shannon Duffy.
Oh shit.
Yeah, yeah. Coming to you all the way from Florida.
All the way from America's little dongle.
Do you
Here I
live
am.
in a swamp? Near a swamp?
Well, to be completely honest, everywhere in Florida is near a swamp, Brian. You just gotta look hard enough. No, I'm in Central Florida, so I gotta travel like 45 minutes to a swamp.
Ah, okay. So is that the part of Florida that's like retirement communities?
Retirement communities and a whole bunch of people on various amounts of drugs.
Oh,
Uh, there are a lot of jokes about Daytona, and there's good reason for that.
oh well, all right. Florida
Yeah,
sounds fun and terrifying.
that sums it up. On one hand, you can go out and there's like a spring in every direction, and it's wonderful. And one wrong turn, and there's a water moccasin. So you just gotta be careful.
Oh yeah, it is good to avoid the venomous water snakes.
Yeah,
But
no, it is. A lot of my friends like to joke, and I know that this is a stereotype about Australia, but we like to call ourselves the Australia of America when it comes to the wildlife and stuff.
hey, I get it. Y'all have some crazy things. Like I live in Texas, and
Mhm.
we also have some pretty varied and dangerous wildlife. But I give Florida a slight edge with your wild chimpanzees and panthers and
And
bigger,
anacondas and
yeah, freaking all sorts.
pythons and
No, see, if I remember right, we are starting to get pythons as well. Thanks, Florida.
yeah, thanks collectors of rare things they shouldn't own. Like that's what happened down here. Lionfish too. Lionfish are going nuts on the coast because people
Yeah,
bought them and then put them in the ocean. And I'm like,
my
why would you do this?
I had a friend who, I guess there's a bounty on lionfish. Like you can go
Mhm.
catch them and turn them in, and the government or someone will pay you.
Right.
And my friend almost had us convinced to take a trip to the coast to go lionfish hunting because apparently you don't fish for them with a rod and reel. You go after them with like a spear. So
Mm.
I was like, that could be fun. I
It could be.
I'm the kind of guy, I'm empathetic to a fault. So I feel bad killing a critter just for it being in the wrong place. I do understand the damage invasive species do to
Mhm. In
ecosystems,
the
but
in the case of the lionfish, they're not just hanging around. They're uh they're murdering the entire area. And they're really hard to kill because they have very good defense mechanisms in their bodies.
that
So,
that makes sense. They are. See,
yeah.
we have some invasive species here, but one of the ones that's the worst, which I think y'all have too, is the channeled apple snell,
Oh yeah.
which is a snell with like a garden snell, but they grow
Mhm.
to be the size of like a softball.
Yeah, giant snails just fucking everywhere, just
Yeah, they're originally
moving
from China,
around.
but they eat all the aquatic vegetation.
Mhm.
So the normal animals here that eat that, like turtles and other things, fish, I guess,
Mhm.
run out of food and die. So,
Yeah, then
um,
they go and there's just like five giant snail shells. Like, no, this is mine. You can't get through these. And well,
but
turns
it
out
is
they
what it is.
actually can't.
This
Um,
is apparently now the podcast about wildlife.
listen, we mused about all kinds of things, everything from video games to wildlife to the fact that I really wish I had a place with good Cajun food nearby. There's just all kinds of things.
I don't get why. Okay, so Texas, well, the part of Texas I'm in, which
Hmm.
is Houston, which is uh, literally a stone's throw from Louisiana.
Yep, yep.
So we have great Cajun food.
Yeah, yeah.
I am surprised though that Florida doesn't. I feel like everywhere in the South should.
Northern Florida has some more options, but the deeper into Florida you get, the less southern you get, first of all, which is funny to think about. But culturally, the further south you go in Florida, the further up north you go in culture. So northern Florida is basically baby Georgia, but then
Hmm,
you go a little further down and it starts to become New York City. Oh,
interesting.
yeah,
I
it is interesting culturally how that happens. And then in southern Florida, like Miami Dade, there's a lot of culture from Cuba, obviously. So that changes the culture quite a bit. And then you have the Keys, which you just don't go near the Keys. That's a very special kind of person. They're called Keys monsters, actually.
I have no concept of the Keys. I literally the only thing that's triggering in my mind was I watched a nature documentary about a mouse that was native to the Keys that was like super endangered, and that is literally all I know about the Florida Keys.
Hell yeah. Well, the Keys have a very interesting culture. Florida is filled with all of these little capsules of culture from different things. It's one of the most diverse states I've ever been in. Uh, Part of why I hate that it sucks right now is because it's a very interesting, unique area in the world. It just so happens to have a governor that I think is absolutely horrific, which you know, you can empathize with being from where
I
you're from.
I really can. Um, yeah, I don't want to turn it into a political podcast yet, but yes, I would trade my state government for almost any other government.
Yeah, I completely understand. So to keep it more on the fun side, did you know that Dead by Daylight has a dating sim?
I did not like an official game.
Yes, Hooked on You is what it's called. A Dead by Daylight dating sim.
Wasn't so remind me, Dead by Daylight, is that the one with like the cabin and the Wendigos and the
No, Dead by Daylight is the one with the killers. That it's the survivors versus the killers.
oh, is that one of the 4v1
Yeah,
multiplayer
asymmetric
games?
multiplayer, and they took the murderers and made them into dating options.
Oh, right. That's the one that had like the guest celebrity characters like Jason and stuff, right?
Yeah, Leatherface, who I use a lot. I use Leatherface. I'm pretty much exclusively a killer player because, of course. Uh, but Leatherface is great. You run around and he gets really upset and throws tantrums, and you cut people into pieces. It's beautiful.
As Leatherface does. That would be an accurate depiction of Leatherface. I haven't played that game, but I don't play very many multiplayer games, and it's not that I dislike them. I actually have a great time with them. It just
Mm.
never seems to happen.
I understand that entirely. They're not for everybody, and also I wish I didn't play them as much. All the time I've been spending on fighting games and stuff, I could be beating RPGs. However, there's a thrill when you do well. And it feels nice to get a good game going and just beating down people.
That I can appreciate that. That's how my second favorite genre to RPGs is probably platformers,
Mm.
like 2D platformers and Metroidvanias,
Getting in
and
that flow state in a good platformer feels so good.
it really does. It really does. Which so on video games,
Mhm.
it has been a while since we've done one of these podcasts. So I assume we've both played a lot of new stuff or picked up new stuff. And I know a big one for you, which came up in previous podcasts, was Live Alive.
Yes,
And you finally got to play the remake.
I did.
And how was that?
It was magnificent. I loved it. It was everything I wanted it to be. It was respectful. It added a few quality of life things that made the game a little bit more accessible for people who didn't play the game in 1995. 95. Anyway, and it really just presented it very well. The remakes of the music, Yoko Shimomura was there helping them with it, so her handprint was in all of it. It was fantastic. She even made some songs that were already fantastic and wonderful even better, like Megalomania, right? That song is actually now just a prog song. And it's awesome. She really touched it all up. The story is pretty much untouched. They just added full voice acting, which is better than anything else they've done 2D HD wise. I know because I've both watched Triangle Strategy things and have played Octopath, and man, they did a much better job with this as far as the voicing. Is it fantastic? No. Is it Final Fantasy X? Absolutely not. It's better than that. So I'm very happy with what they've been doing. And it looks beautiful. The 2D HD style, the translation was fantastic. The shading, the way they made every character look, it was just wonderful. I sat down and played a game that means a lot for me. That's been repackaged for new people. I beat it in a weekend pretty much because I just couldn't stop playing it. And then to see everybody just love it, the reception for the game, even coming out a week before Xenoblade 3, a whole bunch of people are still talking about it. And a lot of people are still absolutely loving the experience and thinking it's one of the best games they've played this year. And that just brings a lot of joy to my heart. It means a lot to me personally as a property. So to see other people engage with and love it is awesome. And I love seeing it.
So it gets 2 tea bags up from you.
2 tea bags up. I'm using actually 5 tea bags to make this iced tea today. That's,
Oh, that's a lot of
yeah,
tea bags. Um,
there's a lot of tea bags.
if so when people absolutely love a game like that, I do like to ask, like, so is even if you have to nitpick, like,
Mhm.
what, is there anything about the game that you're just like, I don't like that they did how they did this? Is it the voice acting? Is that its weakest point? Or
Well, the thing is, like, the voice acting is whatever. You can switch it to Japanese if you want. So that fix it if you think the English voice acting isn't good. Honestly, the changes they made, most of them they're all pretty good. They don't bother me. Nothing really stands out as negative to me. They made a couple of the fights a little easier, which is whatever. They made the mechanic of getting materials to get items in the prehistoric chapter far easier, and some people complained, but those people are silly because that was really stupid back in the day. So it's a lot better currently to have that ability to do that. It just overall they packaged it to make it easier to find out where to go. They added a little mini map, which some people aren't thrilled on, but I think is good because the only real critiques of Live Alive people had back in the day where it was difficult to find where some things were and get where you needed to go. And this just gives you a little gem like, go here. And it doesn't tell you anything else. And I think that that's perfectly acceptable. I also believe you could turn it off if you wanted to, so it doesn't even really matter all that much. All the changes were pretty good. The only negatives I think were negatives that were instilled in the game originally. Like the back half of the game involves random battles when none of the rest of the game did, and it really slows the pacing down. And it makes the game. You have these 7 really well done vignettes, focused, maybe 2 hours at the most. 20 minutes is the shortest. There's one chapter that times 8 minutes for it to happen. So with all the story stuff, it takes like 15 minutes to do. All of these are very compact, well thought out, cohesive stories. And then you get into the back end where it's a little bit larger and it just, instead of feeling like this big open thing where you're like, yeah, we get to go do everything, you've had these very curated experiences, and then you feel like you just get dumped into a giant beach and it's like, go find things. And you're like, oh, what to do? So it's a little bit of a tonal shock, but otherwise, I think the game's great.
awesome. So a question that's come up a lot since its release
Mhm.
is, what game would you want to get the same treatment, the same 2D HD remake at the same level of quality?
Mm. So it's never going to happen because the text part is so difficult to do for various languages. But Treasure of the Rudras would be A plus in 2D HD in my opinion.
I need
The
to I need to play that one. I've seen still images and some animations and stuff, and it looks beautiful.
Oh, it's absolutely beautiful. The only issue is that the magic system is based off of you making up words. So the game looks up like certain vowel structures and letters put together to make the spell. Like if I decided to name a spell pina colada, it would look at the words and it would be like, okay, so this is going to be a lightning spell or whatever it is. And because of that, it needs to be able to make every word in the language, which makes it very difficult to
Y-
translate to other languages.
Yeah, that would be a lot of work. Like, I assume I don't even know how they would begin to tackle that. I would have to look into how it worked in the original game because that's pretty impressive for the time.
It really is. And then even more impressive is good old Aeon Genesis translations. Is That's the group, I say group, but it's one person that actually put together the American English translation for it. And it works pretty well, all things considered.
So
So
treasures of the Rudris would be your if I were to pick so a high profile choice that a lot of people have brought up is things like Suikoden or
mhm.
Valkyrie profile, the first one, which I would like to see more like 2D action RPGs get this treatment because I feel like a lot of older action RPGs kind of get ignored.
I feel like Secret of Mana would do really well with it.
It would. I wouldn't be surprised if that happens at some point.
And I also feel Final Fantasy Tactics would look amazing in the
Well, yeah.
style.
You know, since they're doing the Tactics Ogre Reborn or whatever the remaster, I know a lot of people are saying that after that we're gonna get like a Tactics remake or
Because of the
remaster.
league.
So
Yeah.
yeah, maybe we'll have to see what they do with it. Maybe it'll be more than just a remaster. Maybe it'll be more of a remake.
That would be wonderful. I would love to see a remake that maybe fixes a couple of the balance issues that the game has.
This year, this last couple of years have been very interesting for them giving us remasters and remakes and sequels that just a few years ago I would have put money against ever happening. um,
Yeah, I know. I remember when Live Alive got announced, the Discord that we're both a part in, it's an RPG one. It Everyone lost it. And then a whole bunch of people tagged me because I'm the Live Alive shill in the server. And I lost it. I teared up. I'm like, this is happening? This is real life right now? And then we're getting a Tactics Ogre remaster. We're getting stuff like Dio Field Chronicle. We're getting all of these interesting old style games. And I
and
think part of it is Square realized where their bread and butter was, which is part of why they're, you know, disengaging the train connections to all the Western studios and saying bye bye. Is that didn't work for them. The cultures didn't mesh, and so they're just going back to the roots, which as somebody that loves the old style of RPG that Square did, I'm here for. What's your opinion on that, actually?
well, I love it. I know a lot of people immediately go to, oh, they're just milking these properties for nostalgia to make money, and I'm like, yes, that's exactly what they're doing, and I actually don't care about their motivations as long as the games are good. Like, take my
Right.
money, like make me yes, cater to me, cater to my nostalgia. Like, I that is not a negative.
Hmm.
Companies, executives, the profit reaching part of a company is always going to have the motivations to capitalize on trends and whatever's going to make them the money, and that's fine, or that's another conversation. It doesn't really matter. I do want those products. Like, the reason they're going to make money is because there is a demand for them. So none of that matters. All that matters is whether or not they're quality, and so far they've done a really good job, which I'm here for.
Yeah.
I hope some other companies uh, who are already doing it do it, better, or who are not doing it take a page.
Yeah,
I'd
there
really.
are.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I'd really, that one of my remaster, like, top of my remaster wish list is Skies of Arcadia,
Mhm.
because I just want a remaster on a modern system or on PC that upreses the menus and stuff to HD, and gives me the full high quality audio from the Dreamcast version, plus the extra content from the GameCube version. That's all I want. I,
Would you want to remake, or would you be scared about that?
if it would depend on the studio, because I just it would depend on the studio, because there are people within Sega that are capable. Um, it's just it's Sega. Their content's kind of hit or miss, and they don't make a whole lot of like traditional JRPGs. So them making a new one now would be kind of, it would depend on who was attached to it, really. Because I mean, they can make cool stuff like that. Obviously, they made Skies of Arcadia, and Valkyria Chronicles
Not
is
to be
another.
confused with Valkyrie Profile.
Yeah, not to be confused with Valkyrie
I
Profile,
did that when I was younger. Yeah.
but yeah, those are both excellent. So they're capable of doing it. It's just, I don't know. They do not have a resume for making JRPGs that would automatically make me excited.
True. That's fair enough. You know something that just popped in my head, Brian, to derail the conversation
What's that?
is, you know what I would love? It's never going to happen. This is pipe dream. You know how they have the pixel remasters of 1 through 6? I would love pixel demasters of 7 through 10.
So you say that'll never happen,
Yes.
but to be fair, we said some of this other stuff. Would I absolutely said a Live Alive remake would never happen,
Mhm.
and I also said that a Chrono Cross remaster would never happen.
Mhm.
And I was wrong about both of those things. And
Yes.
they have done the low, whatever you want to call them, low poly demakes of like 15 for mobile,
True.
and they're doing that thing. I barely remember it, but that thing for 7 that they announced when they announced the remake,
Mhm.
or when they released the remake, that it's like the story of Final Fantasy 7 compilation or something, like demade for mobile. I
Mhm.
don't remember much about it, but so they're doing 3D polygonal demakes. So maybe someday in the future they'll just give you a pixel version of them. I don't know. They've made pixel assets of those for their mobile gacha games. They got all sorts of Final Fantasy 7 pixel content for their mobile games. So it's not like they couldn't do it.
True. That is a fair statement. They could absolutely. I would, if I got to play FF9 but in beautiful pixels, I would lose it. I would absolutely lose my mind.
See, and something like 9, I think, would still work for that. Like, it would
Mhm.
be a little more difficult to do it with like the later Final Fantasies, but 9, it was polygonal, it was 3D, but it was still kind of an old school. People will probably disagree with this, but it was not open world. It had an open world, like an overworld map, but that doesn't make a game open world. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, I think you could do that. I think you could turn it into a Final Fantasy 6 looking game,
Yeah, no, that is something that I would love. I would absolutely love it.
and
Before I
give.
move on to the
I was just
next, oh,
gonna
sorry, go ahead.
say, and give Amaranth and Freya, some real content.
Freya had real. Okay, all right, you just hit a pet peeve. All right.
No, real quick, because I'm just gonna say, I'm not saying she had no. She had more
Mhm.
content than the, what's his face, the weird non-binary
Bueno.
food monster, uh, and Amaranth, but she did not have as much content as the core trio.
Oh man, you mean this character that isn't attached to the three main characters got less storyline than the three main characters? Holy crap, that's so weird. Whoever would have thought that happened? Not me.
I will say, okay, your criticism is valid. And what I will say, because I was thinking about it while you were talking, and so those periphery characters tend to be some of the cooler ones, right? In
Mhm,
Final Fantasy. So thinking about it, your characters like your Shadow, or you know, for this example, Vincent.
mhm,
So when Final Fantasy VII first came out, and it was just Final Fantasy VII, there was no expanded content. Vincent was cool, right? He was this mysterious
mhm.
extra character who was optional, and he had snippets of story, and he was awesome. And then they gave you Vincent content, and it was awful.
What do you mean? That game is great. What was it called again? Dirge of Cerberus?
Even freaking Square pretends that game doesn't exist. They weren't like, I mean, don't get me wrong, they're putting content from it, or nods to it in like the remake and stuff, but
But they're not ever re-releasing it.
yeah, we're getting Crisis Core again, which was another thing I said would never fucking happen. But
Mhm.
I do not see us getting like a Dirge of Cerberus remaster. Um,
I mean, that is absolutely fair. I so the reason I get irritated with Freya is I'm actually kind of okay with video games ending character arcs for your party throughout the storyline in different sections. They don't all have to be at the end. Some people are going to be more well put together. Some people are going to be further along in their journey, right? Not everybody needs an arc throughout the entire game. And I think that that's just a trope of writing that hamstrings the writer, because why should somebody as well put together as Freya, who actually you do her whole arc when they go back to the place, there's a little arc a little later involving her family, why should she have as many issues as the fucking mess that is Zidane or however you say his name? Like, he's got way more issues than Freya. So it
yes,
makes sense that he has to work through them the whole time. Same with Steiner and Vivi and all these characters that have these huge arcs that just start, where you come into Freya's arc halfway through. So it makes sense that her arc concludes first. And then everyone's like, she doesn't get the story, she got done dirty. I'm like, her story was cool. She's an interesting character. Could they have added more unique dialogue? Yes. They absolutely could have added more Freya dialogue, and I would have eaten that up because Freya's awesome. But let writers make the stories they want to make.
I do agree. I um so to me, something I've said in our conversations or in our
Mhm,
Discord and stuff is that, especially when it comes to turn-based games with multiple characters like that. So an argument is that, like, if a character like Amaranth or Yuffie or somebody is optional and isn't core to the story, then they don't need to be there, right? They're like dead
mhm.
weight. So, and I'm like, that would be true in a literary story, right? Or a
Right.
movie, or even a very linear video game. But this is a turn-based game with a party system, right? So they are also, aside from being an element of the story, they are also part of the gameplay. They are a tool for your toolbox or whatever. Like, that makes
Yes.
the party system more interesting. It is fun and interesting to have, 8 different characters with different mechanics to use in a party system that you can rotate in and out, and build your ideal party. And if, you know, a lot of people will say, it'd be better if you only had the 3 characters
Mhm.
and, a tighter story. And I'm like, that's less interesting gameplay to me.
Exactly. And you know what? I usually am 100% for scale back stuff that doesn't need to be there. Give me a fast, linear story. But you know what? I'm coming to terms with a couple things. I'm going through it. And one of those things I'm coming to terms with is sometimes banter that doesn't need to exist makes a story more interesting. But I've also had this opinion because I like Tales games. You can't like Tales games if you like well-made plots. You have to you have to like
What?
Tales games because you like character development and character banter. Because the overall plots of the games are very, very bog standard. But what makes them interesting is you have this cast of characters, which I think Tales does better than most other games back in the day, less so now because other games are starting to do it. But having the character banter that you can just watch where they're talking back and forth and you really get a feel for what these characters want, what they are, who they are, makes you more attached because these are characters you're spending hours and hours with. Whereas I remember playing, what is it, like FF13, and at like hour 70 I still didn't quite understand why some of the characters were doing what they were doing, which is
Yeah,
part of why that game didn't resonate with me.
the pacing in that game was a problem.
Abysmal. It was abysmal.
Um, I mean, yeah, I agree. On Tells, I will say that like, while I also like it for what you just listed, my main like of the Tells game is the fact that it has like a kitchen sink approach to gameplay elements, which
Hmm.
people will call it bloated, but I'm like, nah, man, that game gives me so much to do. And I like things like having to unlock all these titles for the characters and all these arts and optional outfits and
Hmm.
all sorts of like give me things to grind for, give me systems to unlock, uh items to fetch and find and unlock, and best beasteries, bestaries, however you say that word. um
Beastary, yeah.
yeah, to fill out, and you know things like that. Give me things to unlock. Yeah. And Brian is very happy. That's right. Third person. Uh
Hell yeah, third person. And like I agree. And it's funny because I remember you coming after me when I said I like that stuff because I'm normally like, cut this shit out. I don't like any of it. And the reason why in Tales it works for me is unlike something like Witcher 3, which I'm currently playing, and unlike Skyrim, I'm not enjoying. And I'll go over that in a little bit. But in Witcher 3, all the side stuff just feels like really tacked on. Even though it can tie in storyline wise, it feels like the kind of tie in that's just kind of like you get a line 2 hours later in the game. Woohoo, right? But like the tail stuff, I feel like I'm going towards something. If I get all this cooking, I get this recipe that is even better. Or if I do this fighting stuff, I get this legendary art. Or I get this outfit for doing this stupid little joke thing. Whereas in Witcher, I get like a potion or some money or some plot that I don't care about because I think the writing is incredibly boring. And that's the kind of stuff I don't like because it feels like it's taking me away from the main story to give me nothing that I want. Whereas Tails, I get a bunch of exciting, cool, shiny shit that I get to put in my bag. Does that make sense?
it makes a lot of sense. um
Yeah.
I basically feel the same way. And now, so moving on, because this is our first time back podcasting after a while, and
Yes.
we didn't really write a structure or script for this episode, so we're kind of bouncing around. But
Hmm.
I just wanted to go back and catch up on some stuff that's happened since we last recorded. For example, I attended the Classic Game Fest in Austin, Texas last month.
Ooh.
Yeah, which is, so it's an expo or a convention, but it is much more consumer oriented. Like, it's basically a giant retro game flea market in an expo hall with some special guests and like a free play area and tournaments and stuff attached to it, but not
Mhm.
nearly as much a focus on that as there is on vendors.
Gotcha.
Um so there are a few hundred vendor booths all selling like retro game stuff, or you know the occasional one selling just nerd stuff like anime stuff or video game merchandise like clothes and stuff, but a lot of it is retro stuff, and it's very reasonably priced. A lot of there are some people who jack up the price because that's just the way markets work these days, but you can haggle, and you can find some really good deals. And I picked up a few things. I got
Hmm.
an Intellivision. uh, for $20. I got an Intellivision. I got a Sega Genesis Mark One. I got a Sega Master System. I got some some games, and I just had a lot of fun. It's my
That's
second
awesome.
year to go, and I I will say every year I learn a little bit, like to prepare better for the next year. So next year I'm definitely taking like a four wheel cart thing with me, because one of the first things that or first issues I ran into was there was a booth that was selling defective hardware, like just
Mhm.
it didn't work for whatever reason, and they had bins and bins of it. And I bought a bunch of like defective controllers that had very little wrong with them, and some other stuff, and it was like I had to make like three trips because I couldn't carry everything. Um, just stuff like that, you know. And also everyone's familiar with choice paralysis,
Right.
so this is the kind of thing where you show up, and if you're smart or whatever, you'll set yourself a budget unless you just have unlimited money. And so you'll see stuff, right? And you'll be like, "Oh man, this is a great deal on this." Oh, I also bought an original Game Boy. But you'd be like, "This is a great deal on this Atari Lynx or whatever," and
Mhm.
you're like, "But it's a third of my budget. Should I buy it now?" Or and then you'll walk away for a minute and come back and someone else bought it. So
Somebody's like, for my budget, it's absolutely worth it.
yeah, so you have so many choices. It's easy to not buy anything because you're just overwhelmed and you're like, I don't know what to spend my money on. There's so many cool things.
I'm sad you didn't get a Saturn.
I almost did, but I will be honest. They had some Saturns, but that was one thing that was not cheaper than what I can get on the internet. A lot
Uh,
of other systems were like if you want to buy like an NES or a Genesis, PlayStation, almost anything except for a Saturn, really. Uh, the prices were better, but Saturns were for a working one with like cords and controllers. Some of the booths were charging a couple $100, and I'm like, I can hop on eBay right now and get a working Saturn for less than $100. If
mm,
I use Japanese Yahoo auctions, you can get one in box for less than $100 before shipping, which will
nice.
probably be like $100. But
Yeah.
that'll probably end up costing you the same $200 price they're charging, but you get complete inbox. So it was something I wanted to wait on because of their prices. But I did almost buy a 3DO because they had complete 3DOs for like $80. Almost there was so many things I almost bought. I should write a blog with the pictures that I took on our website.
Mm.
Um, and I'm gonna go back next year, unless something horrible happens, because it's every July, and it is.
That'd be
Uh,
nice. I should
yeah,
travel there. I should drive all the way from
you
the
you
swamp to the other swamp.
you should come down. I mean, I know Florida has some cool conventions, and honestly, many states have cool conventions, right?
Yes.
And everybody tends to talk about like California or Washington because things like Comic Con and PAX Prime, but other states have some cool conventions. We have you know, that we have San Japan, which is in San Antonio. It's an anime one.
Oh, there you go. You know what we could do? We could actually trade, right? I could go to Retrofest, and then you could come for one of the largest Ren fairs in the country down in South Florida.
I just we have a bigger one.
Oh my god. Here I am trying to be nice.
I know, I know. Okay, so we have the that was rude of me. That was stupid. But we have the Texas Renaissance festival, which is actually just north of Houston, and a town called Todd Mission, which is basically just a town that's supported by the Renaissance festival, and it happens every year from like I want to say like September to December, and I don't know. That's one of those things that's not regulated. So they claim to be the biggest Ren festival in the country.
Yeah, yeah.
But that's one of those things that is not. They may not be. I'm not sure because no one polices Ren fairs saying that. Um, they are very big though. Uh,
Yes.
but I would like to go see another one. For Florida, I know you have like MegaCon and there's some other ones. I want to go to BotCon, which I think is like in Tennessee or something, but that's the Transformers convention. Um,
Mhm.
And of course, Gen Con would be cool. Even though a lot of these cons like Gen Con, and I didn't mention it, but like Anime and Matsuri in Houston have kind of crappy
Yeah,
reputations. Yeah,
anime Matsuri has a lot of bad juju going on.
which sucks because it's a gigantic anime convention, and
Mhm.
a lot of people are like, don't go, like boycott Anime Matsuri because the owner's a terrible person and terrible shit happens there, and it's like I I don't dispute that, and like I didn't go this year, but there's not an alternative is the problem. It's like if you want to kill Anime Matsuri, if you want to punish them for being shitty by killing their convention, you have to provide an alternative.
Right.
So, and I know that's easier said than done. Like you're not gonna suddenly be able to create, you know, the largest anime convention to compete with that one, but it's not gonna happen. Like it's not gonna die as long as there's not something else to take its place.
Yeah, it's kind of sad that it's gotten to that point. And I could talk about a lot of con stuff because I actually know a lot of people that run the circuit. Like, they would just go to different anime conventions and volunteer. And the stuff that goes on is absolutely wild.
I mean, you get a bunch of guys, crammed into an expo hall with a bunch of people wearing, like objectively attractive or revealing cosplay and things like that, and you're going to have guys indulging themselves in creepy behavior. Um, that's a generalization, but and it shouldn't happen. But it's predictable,
Mhm.
unfortunately. And I know a bunch of other stuff happens there. Like I said, the with Anime Matsuri, it's not just the people who visit. It's actually the owners of the convention who run it are apparently also really bad people.
Oh,
Which
exciting.
sucks because you couldn't even like move the convention to fix it. Um, but yeah,
Yeah,
so that was the thing I did this year.
excellent.
I didn't go to Anime Matsuri, and I probably won't go to any other conventions this year because on the 27th of this month, which is August, I will be a father. That's the day that my baby is being born. So
Excellent.
yeah, I'm told that's expensive. So
It is expensive. It's part of why I did the drum roll and clap for when
uh,
you made the announcement. I'm really excited for you. It's a big
yeah.
deal.
So I assume I won't be able to afford to be going to too many conventions for the next several months.
Yeah, unless you put that baby to work, become a baby model, do the Gerber commercials.
But that's problematic, sir.
It is. It is. Uh which is what makes it funny to me.
Oh my
But
god, our world. But no, I am excited. I'm excited. It's just I don't know what to expect yet because first time father, so I don't know if I'm gonna
yeah,
have the energy um to do anything like that. I'm hoping to go to the Ren Fair actually
that'd be cool.
once this year, but we will see.
Oh, you
I
could
did.
even make a little like wicker basket for the baby and be like a peasant from the time period. You can make a whole outfit based around it.
I could. I
Yeah,
went as a an assassin last year from Assassin's Creed because I had an
cool.
outfit for that. So maybe I could dress up the baby in an Assassin's Creed outfit. I don't know.
I want to get like a potato sack and be Friar Tuck one time.
You should come down for one of our things for something, and then I can't guarantee you I will ever go to Florida, but I will try.
Yeah, yeah. No, like I
I
said, we
will.
need to we need to exchange our swampy cultures.
I will think
Uh,
about it. I'm see my deal is I'm a homebody, and I'm sure you are too. But
yes.
but also I have a wife, and I I wouldn't call myself clingy, but like also I'm like if I go to Florida, I want to go for more than like a day, and I don't know how long I want to spend away from my wife. So if I would have to bring her, and that would require me to convince her it's going to be fun. Um,
I would try my damnedest to show you enjoyable things. St. Augustine is real cool, you know? Especially if you like history.
I do
But
like history. I
yeah,
do.
yeah. Oh, speaking of history, I want to transition to one last gaming thing real quick before we head to the music. Um, if that's okay, leaving this topic for now.
What you got?
Good and Evil 2 gets a new lead writer. I forgot to bring that up. You know that game that's
That
still totally being made? Yeah,
I swear to God that got canceled.
it did not. They actually just hired a new writer, which means
There is no way that's going to be a good game, right?
there's a set that people thought that about Doom 2016,
Right, but
and
and
then
I
look
get
what
that,
happened.
but people also thought that about Duke Nukem
I'm not
Forever,
going to
and
talk
they were
about this. Is
correct.
positivity corner today, okay?
Yeah.
We're t-
Like how
I have no clue, but I'm curious to see what happens.
like is it even the same game at this point? Like how many I
Oh,
wonder
it's
how
got
many
to be
like
different. Yeah.
I wonder how many like stops and restarts that it's been through.
Probably like 3 or 4.
I would, and for game preservation, it's always fun. It'd be cool if we ever get to see like those older alpha and beta builds of like the different versions. A lot of companies will never give us that, but it would be cool.
Yeah, no, it would be interesting. But the this writer, her name is Sarah Erolano. I probably Italianized the name that isn't Italian, but that's fine. She uh, she was a designer for a game called Super Evil Megacorp. She worked on a MOBA for it. She also helped write for the Saints Row reboot and some World of Warcraft stuff. So she's got a good little thing there, resume, so to speak. So I'm interested to see how this goes if it ever comes out. They're saying hopefully 2024. it's it's been in development for a very long time, as you said, Brian. It's been in that development hell for a minute.
2024. Huh.
Yeah, yeah, 2 years, or more like a year and a half at this point, since we're in August.
Maybe that game will come out just in time for us to play it in order to escape the presidential election that year.
Maybe I'm just hoping for you know Skynet to happen. I'll treat my computer really nice. Just let me live my life at that
I,
point.
I do try to treat I have the smart speakers, and I do I try to be very polite to them because I'm like I don't know if this thing will be part of the eventual AI uprising, but I hope it remembers I was polite.
Absolutely. So, moving on to our next section, the misplaced melodies section of our podcast, which I'm very excited for. So, Brian, what track do you have for us today?
Oh, sure, go with mine first. I need to pull mine back up. I don't remember the title. Uh, do you have it up right now, by chance?
Do I have it up? Yes, it is called Above and Beyond, and
From Virtual On.
yeah,
What's the subtitle on the Dreamcast game? I never try to say it because the version in my head is the version I tried to say when I was like a teenager, and I know I was mispronouncing it.
Cyber Troopers Virtual On
No, no,
Oratorio Tangram. That
that's
one.
the one. Arturio Tangram.
Okay.
The Dreamcast one. So yeah, I picked this because and I picked it like 3 days ago is why I was having trouble remembering it for the listener.
Hmm.
And I picked it because at the time I wanted something optimistic and I like this track. It is optimistic. It's from Virtual On, which is weirdly like I thought about it the other day. Not only is it retro now, but it's also kind of niche or obscure, which is kind of a bummer.
Yes.
It is a and correct me if I get this genre wrong because but it is like a 3D mech fighter.
Yeah, so it's one of the first real like arena fighters that really tried to take off. And by arena fighter, I mean like if you've ever played the Dragon Ball Z, not the regular fighters, but the Tenkaichi ones where you're flying around an arena and you have 3D movement, those are called arena fighters. And Virtual On is one of the first ones to really get a system that works.
That okay, that makes sense. I just so my first time, I know it predates the Dreamcast. It was in arcades and it was on
Hmm.
the Saturn. But my first time, and I think it may have been on the PlayStation. But my first time playing it was a Dreamcast. And I didn't know what it was when I got it, but I loved it. It has an amazing soundtrack. It has a great style, a great feel to it. What I will say about it that is kind of weird is I didn't realize this till way later on, but these mechs you're playing as are supposed to be very large,
Yes,
and the game does not capture that scale at all. Like
it does not.
I felt like they are human sized mechs, but other than that, it is great. It's like it's a fast paced mech type thing. It's like Armored Core, the fighter.
Yeah, no, the games are awesome, and I am very excited to listen to this track. So let's get into it, shall we?
Oh yeah, real quick. The composer for this was Kentaro Koyama, who also did a bunch of Sega's other arcade games and stuff like that. So yeah, let's get into it. Okay, and we're back.
Yes, and that was a fun listen. It's a very exciting track.
Like I said, I was in a pretty down mood the other day, and I was like, I want something high energy and optimistic, and that makes you want to smile.
Yeah, the track does that. It has almost like a beachy feel to it with how they play the music. It makes me feel like I'm near the water.
I could get that. I could. It I like that whole soundtrack. It was hard to pick which one I wanted, but so if the listener has never heard that soundtrack, they should go check it out. Virtual On for the Dreamcast. It has a great soundtrack.
Yes.
But moving on, you had an interesting pick that was a response to a little um not debate we had. So Shannon here trashed the Game Boy the other day. And then to make me feel better, he picked this track.
Yes. So when Brian was all excited about the Game Boy, I was teasing and I went a little too hard. So I wanted to make it up to them because they love the Mega Drive, and a lot of people like to talk mess on its sound chip, and those people are wrong. And I just want to put that out there right now. It's got such a nice punchy feel to it, and if
They
somebody
are
knows
wrong.
what they're doing, they can make amazing stuff.
So pausing it for a second, I know I've said this in other podcasts.
Hmm.
But not only are they wrong, but they are like objectively technically wrong, and it drives me bananas. Like, this is revisionist history that is just garbage.
It's Nintendo propaganda.
Like, well, I came up on the internet, you know, and being in message boards on old hardware and listening to you know, other podcasts about retro hardware, and then getting into the retro hardware restoration and modding scene. And the Genesis Model 1 sound chip is just regarded as better than the Super Nintendo
Hmm.
equivalent. Like, it is the legendary Yamaha sound processor. I forget the letter number tag on it, but you know, it was one that was famous outside of the game industry at the time. Like, it was used in a lot of FM synthesizers and things like that. It is an amazing like sound hardware setup. Granted, on further hardware revisions, like with, you know, further revisions of the Model 1 and
Right.
then into the Model 2 and 3, they changed it and the quality took a dip. But the original Model 1 Sega Genesis just has better sound hardware than the Super Nintendo, and people can fight me.
Well, a big part of why that happened is all of the emulation. So, a bunch of people, when they put up soundtracks on YouTube, for example, will pull from an emulator that's not using the correct chip setup, so it sounds terrible. And that's what
Yes.
people thought the Genesis sounded like, and it doesn't. And a really good example of it sounding good is my track here. What I picked was The Sinking Old Sanctuary, level 2 from Castlevania Bloodlines. And the composer for it and a lot of other Castlevania games is Michiru Yamane, and she kills it. It's great. She made the soundtrack for this. She made the soundtrack for Symphony of the Night, and her usage of the sound chip to make almost kind of like a haunting sound is just wonderful here. And we'll let you guys listen to it, and then we'll come back and go ahead and talk about it a little bit. So, see you on the other side. And welcome back. So, Brian, what did you think of it?
I liked it a lot. I mean, I like that game. It's uh, not as underrated as it used to be. Like, it's finally been
Hmm.
getting positive attention, but for a long time, you know, people dismissed it because it was the Sega Genesis Castlevania. Fuck that shit. Like, it's not real. Like, it's it doesn't even star a Belmont. Um
Oh, yeah, no, which is silly because the game is really good.
it is. It's a lot of fun, and that soundtrack's good, and that track is good. Um, and like going back to what you were saying before that about emulation, I was just going to point out that yes, that is a known problem, and people are actually trying to address it these days. That there are databases where people are pulling like detailed sound records from the hardware
Mhm.
for each revision, so that you can test sound against it to get like true peak Model 1 Genesis sound if that's what you're going for and stuff like that.
Right.
It's really cool. But yes, this track is great. I when you had me listen to it, I then went and re-listened to the whole soundtrack for the game, and it's really good. It's solid. It's not my favorite Castlevania soundtrack, but I think it is easily just as good, if not better, than any Castlevania on the Super Nintendo or before that.
Yeah, absolutely. The soundtrack is wonderful. I think my favorite soundtrack is probably Rondo, but this actually is right next to that because, like I said, the way she just used the sound chip, the punchiness of it, and it makes me feel a lot of what the levels are like. She does a really good job of making the sounds fit in with the level when it's not just remakes of old Castlevania songs. So the reason why I like this one is it really, if you ever played the level, you're just going in and kind of going up in this sinking city, and this makes me feel like the mystery of it. It also makes me feel like there is water nearby, almost the little tinkling. I'm my super professional wording there.
Tinkling.
That the little tinkling noise that's going on in the background the whole time makes me feel like I'm walking around a river or something. And then it's got the punchiness of the drums, and she's got that nice synth that makes it feel mysterious. It's very well done, in my opinion.
I agree. I like this pick a lot, and if the listener does, they should go check out the rest of the soundtrack and play the
That's
game.
100%. The game is great. And one quick shout out before we ended up to a Genesis game that did not get enough love is the Wily Wars.
The Genesis Mega Man game.
It's Mega Man 1 through 3 if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I think it's something like that. It's a which I feel like back then. I mean, there were compilations. You had Mario Superstars and stuff, but they weren't common. And that one was kind of weird because it was a system jump.
Yeah, it was a system jump. The games looked really good. They played well. And it's actually been getting a little bit of love because at the last GDQ, somebody ran Mega Man 3 on it. And oh no, it was Mega Man 2 because people voted incorrectly. Sorry. Anyway, and ev-
Wait, back that up.
everyone
What do you
looked
mean
at it.
voted incorrectly?
I'm just saying that Mega Man 3 is the better Mega Man game.
Oh,
That's all I'm saying.
we'll visit that at some point in the future.
I'm sorry that I like slightly, some more mechanics, better level design, and not having a weapon that breaks the entire game open. I apologize.
Like I said, we can address that
Uh,
in a future podcast. We can argue
okay.
over Mega Man rankings.
Sounds good. I'm not saying Mega Man 2 is bad, by the way. Mega Man 2 is fantastic. Just saying Mega Man 3 is slightly more fantastic.
Hmm.
Um, but that said, we should probably wrap it up. So, where can we find you, Brian?
Same place as usual. You can find me on Twitter at Brian C Nerd. Same for Instagram, Discord, everywhere you want to find
Mhm.
me in particular, and you can find both of us at the misplaced pod .com or misplaced pod on Twitter. What about you, Shannon? You have a Twitch and a Twitter and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, yeah. So I have a Twitch, Teeps the Great. I play RPGs for the most part. And on Wednesdays, I will play fighting games with my group of folk. It's a lot of fun. I am currently playing Mass Effect, playing two things I don't normally do, which is a Paragon and an Infiltrator. So that's been exciting.
Wait, you normally go Renegade?
Yes.
Ugh, why are we even on the same podcast?
Listen, I do it because I really like Renegade and Mass Effect 2. I think Renegade and Mass Effect 1 is kind of crap, but I do it for the setup for Mass Effect 2.
As long as you keep a Rex alive,
Oh,
and
of course I do.
yeah,
I do it by calling him an idiot instead of being nice. Yeah.
Mm.
Um, I never kill Rex. You kidding me? Nah, my buddy. I kill Ashley because there's no room in this world for space races. However,
We should have a pod. We should discuss that further. I have lots of Mass Effect thoughts. We will do that next episode for sure.
yeah, I would love to have a Mass Effect podcast. I'm 100% here for it. But you can find me at Teeps the Great on Twitch and Teeps the Great on Twitter. And then I don't have other social media because I hate social media. But that is where you can find me. I really need to make a LinkedIn for work, dude. I really should.
Yeah,
Anyhow,
if you you're gonna have to make one of those what is it, link trees with all your
oh,
links.
yeah, yeah. And then I could have the one that has my list for gifts, and all the gifts are just gonna be uh restaurant sized condiments.
Oh my god.
Yeah, so instead of like getting me jewelry and stuff, it'd just be like get me 50 pounds of barbecue sauce. I'll be happy. So that said, Brian, you have anything to say before we go ahead and close it out?
I do not. See you next time. Hopefully, it's sooner rather than later.
Yeah, thank you all for being so patient. We love all you listeners, and we'll talk to you next time.